At my dad's retirement party, an incredible secret revealed by the lawyer changed my life forever. Jake stood in the sun-drenched yard, heart pounding. The warm summer air filled with laughter and the smoky aroma of barbecue hung thick, but a storm brewed inside him. Tonight was about his dad, Tom, a hardworking man who was set to leave behind decades at the factory. Friends and neighbors mingled, sharing stories about Tom, each nugget a testament to his dedication, humility, and the quiet strength that shaped their small Midwestern town. The sight of his father standing amidst friends, the golden light casting a halo around him, filled Jake with pride. Memories flooded back. Evenings spent together, building friendships with the neighborhood kids, knowing they were always a stone's throw away from love and support. The banners, crafted with care by the school's art club, flapped gently in the breeze, celebrating a life led with purpose. But joy was soon disrupted. A man in a crisp suit stood up, a lawyer, out of place amidst the tan cargo shorts and summer dresses worn by the assembled crowd. He cracked the reassuring atmosphere with an envelope clutched tightly in his hand. The laughter died, and an uneasy hush fell over the yard. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have an unexpected announcement," he began, his voice slicing through the warmth like ice. Jake felt his chest tighten. Mr. Tom Anderson is the sole heir to an inheritance from a family member he never knew existed. Shockwaves paralleled the gasps that spread through the crowd. Jake felt betrayal grip him like a vice. For as long as he could remember, Tom carved out his path in life without a hint of hidden wealth. He preached the value of hard work, rolling up his sleeves, never asking for handouts. And now an inheritance? Questions swam in Jake's mind, twisting around the fabric of the values he cherished. Had it all been a facade? His neighbors murmured with mixed expressions: confusion, envy, doubt. "It just doesn't make sense," one whispered to another. He always seemed content with what he had. Perspectives shifted, and Jake could feel resentment bubbling, the American dream morphing into something more sinister. Before he knew it, the evening grew heavier. The laughter of children splashing in the pool faded into the background, overshadowed by murmurs of scandal and intrigue. Could this forgotten wealth rewrite their narrative? The thought paralyzed him. Stranded in his inner turmoil, Jake's eyes landed on his dad's weathered face, the lines telling stories of resilience and sacrifice, pride flickering in the corners of his eyes. Had Tom kept secrets hidden, locked away for fear of souring the sweetness of their lives? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jake felt the weight of 1,000 thoughts swirling, desires pulling him toward this unexpected fortune, while his heart anchored him in the loyalty that had guided him thus far. The laughter again faltered. All around him were contemplating their own freedom, their own shackles. Would they chase wealth, redefining their lives, or cling to family ties, the very backbone of who they were? As the evening unfolded, a tension flickered that felt palpable. Could this prophecy of wealth truly sway their course? Jake's mind raced, knowing at that moment, the decisions made tonight could ripple across their lives forever. The voice of the lawyer echoed in his ears. Secrets were swirling just under the surface, and Jake was left grappling with the most profound question of all. What does it mean to truly be rich? Jake stared at his father, Tom, now surrounded by whispers and curious glances. Those sweet memories of childhood felt distant, overshadowed by the looming presence of unspoken wealth. It was as if a fine thread that connected him to his dad was fraying, unraveling with every passing second. The lawyer continued, oblivious to the turmoil stirring in the yard. In total, the inheritance amounts to several $1,000,000, he stated, and further gasps echoed, transforming disbelief into a growing hunger. Jake could see the veil of confusion settle on Tom's face. His dad, always grounded in reality, now looked like a man adrift. What do you mean, several million? Jake's heart raced as he stepped closer, desperate to anchor his father in the confusion. Dad, is this real? I don't know, Jake. Tom stammered, voice cracking under the weight of unexpected scrutiny. I never knew. Can't be. The crowd buzzed with speculation. Some shot knowing looks at each other. Others cast glances of envy towards Tom, the man they thought they knew. The good-natured atmosphere morphed into an uncomfortable circus, and Jake felt himself drawing back, furious that his life felt upended by a truth he hadn't been prepared for. Are there any conditions? Someone shouted, voice laced with skepticism. What does he have to do to receive it? Those words hung heavily, pulling Jake into a vortex of anger. Why do they care? Hadn't his dad done enough? Just then, a neighbor, Mrs. Connors, chimed in, her voice trembling. Tom, you've worked so hard all these years. Maybe it's time you enjoyed some of life's comforts. You deserve it. The statement echoed in Jake's mind, nudging a small seed of doubt. Did they see Tom merely as a friend, or as a symbol of what they wanted from him now? Wealth, privilege, ease. Maybe you could help the community, another voice called out, planting ideas that made Jake cringe. Think of the school, the park. As the crowd began to salivate over the promise of money, Jake felt the skin on his arms prickle. Would they suddenly become his father's best friends? Would they expect something in return? The simple idea of celebration had twisted into something insidious, a prospect laden with strings attached. Jake struggled for control as he witnessed the transformation of not just the party, but his own father's legacy. Uncertainty clawed at his chest. What if Tom had never told them anything because he didn't want this? What if the thought of hidden wealth gnawed at his dad's conscience? A weight he carried alone. He took a deep breath and stepped forward, pulling his father into his embrace, desperate to draw him away from the crowd. Hey, remember who you are, Dad. You're still the same guy, okay? Tom looked at him with eyes that reflected both fear and gratitude. I just don't understand how this could happen. I've always been just fine. Jake searched for answers in those familiar depths. It doesn't change our lives unless we let it. We decide what to do next. As they stood together, the weight of the world pressing down on them, the laughter of the children returned, shimmering against the tension. Jake made a silent vow. They would not be swayed. His father's true wealth lay in the love they shared, not in dollars sitting in a bank. But as the chill of the evening deepened, a wave of unease swept over him. What if this inheritance could alter everything they believed in, threatening to drown the very essence of their lives together? What lay in the shadows of those millions, waiting to reveal themselves? Jake clung tightly to his dad's arm, anxiety clawing at his heart. This was only the beginning. The real inquiry loomed just ahead. Would they navigate through the shadows, or would they be ground beneath the weight of wealth? The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the yard as the celebratory atmosphere began to sour. Jake felt the air thicken with expectations and bewilderment. He pulled Tom away from the crowd, seeking refuge behind a large oak tree, its branches weaving a protective barrier. Dad, we need to talk, Jake said, his voice steady but urgent. This isn't just a windfall. There has to be more to it. Tom leaned against the tree, his hands tightening around the wood. I never asked for any of this. Everyone's acting like I've won a lottery I didn't even play. His gaze drifted, lost in the confusion swirling in his mind. And what if they're right? Jake pressed. What if it's meant to be used for community projects? What if there are strings attached we haven't even considered? A glimmer of recognition sparked in Tom's eyes. I've always believed wealth should be shared, but his voice caught on the last word, laden with uncertainty. The cheerful voices from the crowd felt distant, almost mocking. Had these neighbors really cared about Tom all these years? Or had they lived in his shadow, waiting for a chance to grab a piece of what they thought he could offer? The usual laughter that filled the backyard was now absent, leaving only the echo of speculation behind. Dad, Jake said, stepping closer, this could change everything. The house, the future, us. We can't just let it happen without talking first. Tom's brow furrowed. You're right. But how do we even begin to understand what all this means? I don't know. But we need to figure it out together, Jake urged, his heart racing with urgency. Let us go inside. Away from all those eyes. We can think clearly in there. As they made their way toward the house, the cacophony of voices faded into the background. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that, deep down, they were being watched not just by the neighbors, but by an unseen presence tied to the inheritance. Logic battled with his gut instinct. What if this turned out to be more of a burden than a blessing? Once inside, Jake closed the door, sealing off the murmurs of anticipation from the party. It was quiet now, except for the heartbeat in his chest that thrummed like a warning. What if this changes who we are? He asked, turning to Tom, who slumped down onto the couch. Tom sighed heavily, the weight of his emotions palpable. I don't want to be that guy, the one who's only remembered for what he has, not who he is. That's not me. Relief washed over Jake at his dad's words. Then we have to find a way to control this narrative. We can decide our path together. Tom looked up, a flicker of hope breaking through the cloud of worry. And if we agree to share some of it, do you think the community would expect it all? Only if we let them, Jake said earnestly. But maybe, just maybe, we can use this to strengthen what we already have: our relationships, our values. It doesn't have to change us. Silence enveloped them, the gravity of their conversation settling in. The stark reality of their choice gnawed at Jake. Could wealth liberate, or would it tie them down in ways they couldn't predict? Just as hope began to flicker, a loud knock rattled the front door. Both men exchanged a glance, tension creeping back in. Who could that be? Tom asked, rising warily. Jake's heart pounded as he moved toward the door, uncertainty swirling. I don't know, but maybe it's time we found out. As he opened the door, a familiar face fell into view, a man Jake had never expected to see. I hear you've got a fortune on your hands. We need to talk, the man said, stepping forward with an authoritative air. The air crackled with anticipation, and Jake knew they were on the brink of something life-altering. But would the conversation bring clarity, or dig them deeper into the chaos? Unsure, he took a step back, inviting the stranger in. Jake hesitated, his instincts screaming to shut the door. But the man's piercing gaze held him in place, a mix of urgency and authority radiating from his presence. Can we help you? Jake asked, trying to sound more confident than he felt. The man brushed past Jake without waiting for an invitation. You're Jake, right? Tom's son? That's me, Jake replied, glancing back at Tom, who stood frozen, his expression caught somewhere between shock and caution. I'm Mr. Grayson, your dad's lawyer, the man stated, as if that explained everything. He turned, fixing his eyes on Tom. We need to go over the details of the inheritance. This is a serious matter. Tom ran a hand through his hair, still processing the sudden shift in the evening. I didn't ask for this. I can't even wrap my head around what's going on. Exactly why we should discuss it now, before rumors twist the truth. Grayson's voice was sharp, underscoring the urgency in the room. Tom gestured toward the living room. Can we sit down for a moment? Of course, Grayson said, taking a seat with an air of practiced authority. Jake leaned against the door frame, unsure whether to retreat or confront. His emotions felt like a tangled mess: fear of the unknown, protectiveness for his father, curiosity about what this lawyer knew. It wasn't just their lives at stake anymore. It felt like an invisible thread had been pulled taut, connecting each of them to a larger narrative. Grayson opened a leather briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. This shouldn't take long, but the implications could change everything for both of you. He glanced at Jake, then focused back on Tom. The trust fund left to you is substantial, but it comes with conditions. Tom's brow knitted tighter. Conditions? Right. Firstly, you'll need to establish a community fund, a way to give back to the very people who surround you. The entire neighborhood will have a say in how those funds are distributed. A wave of disbelief washed over Jake. So it's not just about the money? There's a blueprint for involvement? Grayson nodded. That's the intention. Wealth without purpose can be a destructive force. Your father's benefactor wanted to ensure the money positively impacts the community. Tom leaned back, digesting the information. And what if I choose not to do this? There will be repercussions, Grayson replied, leaning forward. You could lose everything and the fund would then be directed elsewhere. Jake's mind raced. This was getting heavier by the second. So what does this mean for us? What happens to our home, our lives? Grayson focused on Tom. That's for you to decide. But you have a say in how the wealth is used, and your legacy can be built here. You just need to embrace the changes these funds can catalyze. Jake felt his stomach churn. But what if the community doesn't want what we have to offer? What if they just see us as a cash cow? What's the reality here? Grayson hesitated, his eyes narrowing slightly. Communities are complex. Not everyone will welcome change with open arms. But the choice is yours. How you shape your relationship with this wealth is ultimately what will define you. Tom's fingers tapped rhythmically on the couch. And what if we disagree on how to do this? Then decide together, Grayson replied firmly. You are both in this together, after all. A silence settled between the three, thick and heavy. The implications of their next steps loomed large. Suddenly, Jake remembered the faces outside, the eager smiles, the whispers. What if they've already made up their minds about us? Grayson stood, collecting his documents. That's a risk you'll always face. But if you're committed to making a difference, you can reshape those perceptions. As he walked toward the door, Jake felt a strange mix of dread and resolve. Everything was changing, but how much of it would reflect their true selves? Mr. Grayson? Jake called out just as the door was about to close. Will you be there when we make our decision? When we have to face them? Grayson paused, his hand on the doorknob. I'll be here, but it's ultimately up to you. The community is waiting to hear your choice. Make it count. The door clicked shut behind him, and the gravity of the moment pressed down on them. Tom looked at Jake with a mix of worry and determination. What do we do now? As relief surged through Jake, he felt it wrestle with the waves of uncertainty. They were standing on a precipice, and the next step could lead them anywhere. Would they venture into the unknown to reclaim their story? Or would they let others craft it for them? The question hung in the air, whispering of both peril and possibility. Tom sat back on the couch, his fingers still tapping the fabric nervously. The room was heavy with unspoken worries, and Jake could feel the weight of his father's uncertainty. The enormity of what lay ahead seeped into every corner of the small living room, the very walls closing in on them. It's hard to grasp, Jake finally said, breaking the silence. This changes everything. He ran a hand through his own hair, mirroring his father's earlier gesture. We're not rich people. We're just us. Tom nodded, his eyes lost in thought. What if we're not cut out for this? What if we fail? Jake shifted, feeling the anxiety radiate off his dad. But what if we could make a difference? What if we actually helped people? Tom leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. That would be great if we knew how. Suddenly, his demeanor shifted. What did this lawyer mean when he said we could lose everything? What about the house? My job? Jake stood, pacing the room. What if they think we're just here to throw money at them? What if all they see is green? The thought hung in the air, palpable, almost suffocating. We can't let that happen. Tom's voice was firm, a spark igniting in his eyes. We can get involved and show them it's not just about the money. It's about building trust, relationships. Exactly, Jake agreed, buoyed by his dad's newfound determination. But we have to be smart about it. We can't just dive in without a plan. He paused, pressing his lips together in thought. What if we start small? Maybe a neighborhood meeting? Tom's eyes lit up at the idea. Yes. We can ask everyone what they need, what they want. We can listen. This time, a smile crept onto Jake's face. And we can bring the ideas back here, work on it together. Let them see us as part of the community, not just as benefactors. Tom sat up straighter, the lines of worry on his face softening. We need to make it clear we're not these distant figures. We're just us. And if we start to build those connections, The community might see us differently, Jake added. Not just as the new wealthy family, but as real people just like them. As they spoke, the uncertainty began to wane. A plan was forming, small but steady, like a flicker of light in an otherwise dark room. But just as hope began to settle, the looming doubt reappeared. What if the community rejected them? What if their intentions were misinterpreted? Jake caught his father's gaze. Whatever happens, we've got to stick together through this. No matter what. In it together, Tom agreed, the words grounding them in resolve. Suddenly, the phone rang, slicing through the conversation like a knife. It was a gut punch to their hopeful momentum. Jake glanced at the screen. It's the Duffys. They're the ones who live 2 doors down. Should I answer it? Let it ring, Tom replied, though his voice wavered. They're probably calling to discuss the neighborhood meeting, right? Jake nodded, but anxiety gnawed at him. What if, instead, they were calling with more bad news? The uncertainty hung heavy in the air, the pressure mounting again. Just then, the doorbell rang. Both men exchanged nervous glances. Maybe it's them, Jake muttered as he approached the door. With each step, anticipation thrummed in the air. Whoever was on the other side could change everything. Jake opened the door, and there stood Mrs. Duffy, looking flustered yet determined. Jake, I need to talk to you and your dad, she said, her voice a mix of urgency and exasperation. It's about the community meeting. There's something we didn't expect. Jake's heart quickened as the words hung in the air. What could it be? Would it propel them forward or pull the rug out from under them? With Mrs. Duffy standing in the doorway, a whirlwind of emotions surrounded them. One thing was clear, their journey was only just beginning, and the stakes were about to get even higher. Mrs. Duffy shifted her weight from one foot to the other, her brow furrowed with concern. I wasn't sure who else to talk to, she started, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting someone to overhear. The community meeting is in jeopardy. What do you mean? Jake asked, frowning, his stomach churning. They found out about, well, the funds you received. There's talk spreading around the neighborhood. Her voice softened, but the urgency in her expression remained. Some folks aren't too pleased about it. Tom crossed his arms, the moment slipping into quiet tension. That's not good. What are they saying? A lot of people think you're just trying to buy their goodwill. Some even believe you're looking to gentrify the neighborhood. It's a hot mess, Mrs. Duffy explained, wringing her hands. I think if we don't clear this up quickly, the meeting won't even happen. Jake's heart raced. But that's not true. We want to help. It's not about money. It's about making real connections. But how do we convince them? Tom interjected, his voice rising slightly. He glanced at Jake, searching for reassurance. Mrs. Duffy took a breath. You need to face them head on. You need to show them. Her gaze was penetrating. If they see you as genuine, if they feel it, they might start to trust you. Okay, Jake said quietly, heart pounding. How do we do that? Start with a small gathering, Mrs. Duffy suggested. Invite folks like you planned, but don't talk about the money. Ask them what they need, what matters to them. Share your vision without the dollar signs attached. Tom rubbed his temples, considering. Do you really think it can turn things around? Mrs. Duffy nodded. I do. People love to see action. If you're open and honest, that might tilt the scales in your favor. Jake felt a glimmer of hope return, but the weight of their situation still pressed down. We'll plan it right away. We can't wait. His determination surged forward. Great. I'll help spread the word, encourage people to come. But you both need to put yourselves out there. I believe you can win them over, she said, giving Jake an encouraging nod. As she turned to leave, Tom called after her. Thank you, Mrs. Duffy. We really appreciate your support. Jake closed the door and turned to his dad, excitement bubbling just under the surface. We can do this, right? Yeah. We just need to make sure that everyone knows we're in this together, Tom replied, a hopeful smile breaking through the cloud of worry. The next hour disappeared in discussions and plans. They put together a flyer, brainstorming ideas for a community potluck. They would provide some food, but also ask everyone to bring a dish that represented their culture, their home. They wanted to create an event where sharing and connections flourished, not just another gathering where money held value. As the sun lowered in the sky, casting a warm golden hue through the room, Jake felt a strange surge of optimism. Maybe, just maybe, they could turn this around. But then, doubt clawed back at the edges of his mind. What if the meeting fell apart? What if the damage was already done and they were too late to mend the rift? The stakes seemed impossibly high now. With a glance at his father, Jake felt that familiar tension in the air again. What if we fail? He finally asked, fear creeping into his voice. Tom sighed. We face those fears, son. Together. That's all we can do. As Jake leaned against the couch, lost in thought, the sound of their phone ringing jolted them both. It was another call, another opportunity. But this time, the name displayed made his heart stop. Dad, it's the lawyer. Tom's expression turned serious instantly, all hope clouded by anxiety. What could he want now? Jake's breath caught in his throat. Whatever the lawyer had to say, it could change everything all over again. Would it bring them closer to their goals? Or was it another hurdle to navigate? With trembling hands, Jake answered the call, sensing the weight of every decision about to be made. Jake took a breath, steeling himself as he pressed the phone to his ear. Hello? He managed, his voice shaky. Jake, it's Mr. Thompson. The lawyer's voice was steady, but there was a hint of urgency. I need to discuss some recent developments with you. Jake's stomach nodded. What kind of developments? Your father's property. There's been a change in the potential buyer's interest. It seems there's a group that wants to purchase it for a community center. They're planning to meet with you both, Mr. Thompson stated plainly. Jake exchanged a glance with Tom, who was now leaning forward, every muscle tense. A community center? Tom echoed, his voice barely above a whisper. Yes. They believe it could serve as a gathering place, a hub for the very community you're trying to engage with, the lawyer explained. However, they want to move quickly. They're worried that the plans you've proposed might conflict with their vision. Jake's heart raced. This could be the turning point they were hoping for. Do we have to decide right away? Not immediately, but I recommend you talk with them soon. It could offer a chance to align your goals or clarify any misconceptions, Mr. Thompson advised, sensing the whirlwind of emotions on the other end of the line. Absolutely, we'll meet with them, Jake started to reply, but doubt crept back in. But what if they think we're just using the money for ourselves? What if they're against us? Jake, this isn't about you or them, this is about the community. Focus on what everyone can achieve together, Mr. Thompson urged, his tone firm. Listen carefully, stay open-minded, and be honest about your intentions. After hanging up, silence enveloped the room. Each second stretched, thick with uncertainty and potential. Tom rubbed his chin, deep in thought. Community center. That could help bridge the gap. But it might also complicate things, don't you think? Yeah, but if we approach it the right way, we could show the neighborhood we're serious about investing in their future. Not just financially but emotionally, Jake replied, warming to the idea. Right? If we get the backing of people in the community, then maybe we can plan the potluck to showcase how this can bring everyone together. We need to emphasize collaboration. Tom's enthusiasm flickered, lighting up his features. But can we convince them? Jake asked, vulnerability creeping back into his voice. What if they see us as imposters? They want if we're sincere. We have to show them we're not just here for business. We're here to build something real, something lasting, Tom assured him, reaching out to rest hand on Jake's shoulder. Let us set a meeting. We have to get everyone involved. Jake nodded, feeling a rush of determination replace his growing fears. They set about planning, mapping out what this new opportunity meant for them. They drafted an invitation for the community to join in on both the potluck and the upcoming meeting with the prospective buyer. As they finalized the details, Jake's phone buzzed, and he instinctively checked the screen. It was a text from Mrs. Duffy, asking how things were going with their plans. He quickly replied, excitement and anxiety mingling in his stomach. Just as he finished typing, Tom spoke again, a bit more serious now. Jake, with everything that's happening, we have to be prepared. This could turn either way. We can't let fear guide our decisions. Right, Jake said, taking a deep breath. He glanced out the window, watching the last rays of sunlight dip below the horizon. Change was on the wind, and it felt both thrilling and terrifying. We need to show them what we're made of. The weight of the moment settled heavily on his chest, and he suddenly felt the stakes rise higher than ever. But yeah, together they could transcend doubt. Just as he resolved to embrace the challenge, another buzz interrupted his thoughts. This time, it was a notification about the community meeting circulating online. In a fleeting second, panic mingled with hope. What if it sparks even more anger? Jake asked, the worry evident in his eyes. His father stood taller, resolute. Then we'll face it head on, son. The truth always finds its way through. As they prepared to face whatever lay ahead, the doorbell rang, the sound echoing ominously. Jake exchanged a glance with Tom, bracing for whatever news greeted them at the door. Who could that be? Jake wondered aloud. There was uncertainty in his tone, but beneath it simmered a flicker of determination. He took a steadying breath, ready to confront whatever awaited them. So much change was on the horizon. But would it be what they needed, or would it unravel the fragile connections just beginning to form? Jake opened the door, his heart hammering as he braced himself for the unexpected. Standing on the threshold was Mrs. Duffy, holding a tray of cookies, her smile big and inviting. I thought you might need a little encouragement, she said, her eyes twinkling with warmth. Under normal circumstances, Jake would have embraced the distraction, but today felt different. Thanks, Mrs. Duffy. We're kind of in the middle of a crisis, he admitted, glancing back at Tom, who was still deep in thought. What kind of crisis? She pressed, stepping into the home, the smell of freshly baked cookies wafting behind her like a hug. The community is divided. We're trying to put together this meeting for the community center. There's a lot at stake, Jake replied, his fears bubbling to the surface again. People can surprise you, you know, she said, half-heartedly nibbling on a cookie. Sometimes they just need reassurance that you care. You'd be amazed what a good plate of cookies can do to turn the tide. Her words hung in the air, a dose of unexpected wisdom that felt both light and heavy at the same time. Jake shared a glance with Tom. Their hesitation melted away, if only for a moment. Would you want to come with us? Tom asked suddenly. We could use your insight. You know the community better than we do. Mrs. Duffy's eyes widened. Oh, I don't know. I'm no professional. But I do care about this place. And if I can help, I will. Felt like a match being struck in a dark room. There was hope. Let us take her cookies to the meeting, Jake suggested, smiling at Mrs. Duffy. A little sweetness might help disarm the tension. Her face lit up as they all began gathering the papers and snacks for their impromptu journey. Each step felt like they were preparing for battle, but it was one of compassion, not of conflict. As they walked, Jake's nerves slowly settled. The thought of sharing a part of themselves in front of the community started transforming anxiety into purpose. Arriving at the community center, they noticed a small crowd gathered, their expressions a blend of curiosity and wariness. It was clear that everyone had arrived with their own stories, their own agendas. The air felt thick with expectation. As they set up, Jake felt Mrs. Duffy's hand on his shoulder. Just remember, the best conversations happen when people feel heard. He nodded, appreciating her presence as he cast his eyes over the crowd. There were familiar faces mixing with others he didn't recognize. Taking a deep breath, Jake stepped forward. Thank you all for coming today. We know there's been a lot of tension between how things have been and how they might be. What we want is to find a way to include everyone in a community center that reflects our shared values. A murmur rippled through the group. It was then that he noticed Mr. Thompson standing at the edge, his expression unreadable. Jake's chest tightened again, trying to read the lawyer's intentions. Did he bring news? Turning to Mrs. Duffy, a burst of courage filled him. We want to hear what you all think and how we can work together. As hands began to go up, voices filled the air, some hesitant, others strong. The community's pulse began to thrum, a rhythm of desires and dreams emerging. Just as they were gaining momentum, The front door swung open again. A tall figure walked in, instantly commandeering attention. It was the potential buyer. He looked every bit as commanding as Jake had imagined, but there was a glint of something in his eyes, something that sent shivers down Jake's spine. What was he doing here? Jake's thoughts raced. As silence took over the room, the buyer smiled, his gaze sweeping over everyone. I've heard a lot about this meeting, and I think it's time for some clarity. Jake's heart dropped. What would this stranger say? Would he be the key to their hopes, or a force that could shatter everything they were building? The room held its breath, and in that moment, Jake felt everything hanging by a thread. Maybe today isn't just about building a center, Jake thought. Maybe it's about confronting our fears and shaping our future together. As the buyer took a step forward, everything seemed to spiral into slow motion. Would his words inspire the collaboration they needed, or would they ignite the anger lurking beneath the surface? Jake steadied himself for whatever was to come next. The buyer cleared his throat, the tension in the room stretching tighter, like a bowstring ready to snap. Thank you for inviting me, he began, his voice smooth yet unsettling. As you may know, I'm here to discuss the purchase of this community center. It's an investment that I believe will bring not only financial growth, but also new opportunities. Whispers floated through the crowd, a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. Jake saw Mrs. Duffy's brows knit together in concern. This wasn't what they had intended. They wanted a collaborative discussion, not a corporate pitch. With a nod from Tom, Jake took a step forward, his heart racing again. We appreciate your interest, Jake said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. But this meeting is about understanding our community's vision, not just a single transaction. The buyer's smile didn't waver. Of course. But it's essential that we discuss the realities involved. The center, as it stands, isn't sustainable without investment. I'm here to provide that. A murmur of dissent rippled through the crowd, and Jake felt a surge of urgency. This could get out of hand quickly. We know our community better than any investor. We have dreams tied to this place. He shot back, his words ringing out louder than he intended. Mr. Thompson, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. Jake's right. This center doesn't belong to the highest bidder. It belongs to us, the people who live here. The warmth of solidarity flickered in Jake's chest. He could feel the crowd rallying, feeding off each other's emotions. Anger? Yes. But also hope. The buyer's expression shifted, a hint of annoyance creeping onto his face. You're misinterpreting my intentions. I want to help, but to do that, we need to take a realistic approach. Think of the community enhancements, the renovations jobs. A few members of the crowd perked up at those words, but Jake could see the potential betrayal in that direction. What kind of jobs? The kind that might threaten local businesses? We need to build up what we have, not replace it. Exactly. Mrs. Duffy chimed in, her voice carrying a motherly warmth, yet fiercely protective. This isn't just about money. It's about the people, their stories, their families. We're more than a piece of property. The tension shifted again, and Jake could feel it, a bond of shared resilience glowing brighter. This meeting was becoming not just about a building, but about a community coming together in defiance of a looming threat. Let us take a moment, Jake suggested, his voice steadier now. Why don't we hear some ideas from the community? Let us put forward our vision before jumping to conclusions. Heads nodded in agreement. People began to open up about their hopes for the center, art programs for kids, fitness classes for seniors, spaces for local artists. Ideas like wildflowers sprouting in the cracks of pavement. The buyer's face tightened again, but Jake could swear he glimpsed something flicker in the man's eyes, an acknowledgement. Maybe, just maybe, they weren't as powerless as they thought. But just as the energy in the room peaked, the front door swung open again. A woman rushed inside, breathless and panicked. I'm so sorry I'm late. It took a moment for Jake to recognize her. It was Sarah, his childhood friend, someone he hadn't seen in years. Jake, you need to hear this, she exclaimed, looking wild-eyed as she scanned the room. What is it? He asked, his heart racing. Before she could speak, the buyer's demeanor shifted instantly. He locked eyes with her, And in that split second, Jake felt cold dread wash over him. Whatever secrets Sarah held were about to change everything. "Sarah, what do you know?" he pressed, the urgency in his voice growing. I know why he's really here," she stammered, glancing nervously at the buyer. "And it's not just about the community center." The room felt heavy with anticipation, a crackling energy that promised revelations. Everything Jake thought he understood was about to unravel. What would Sarah say? What secrets lay beneath the surface? Jake took a deep breath, preparing himself for whatever truth would crash into their midst. Would they be ready for it? Would it tear them apart or draw them closer together? A moment of truth was on the horizon, waiting for him to step forward into the unknown. Sarah took a shaky breath, eyes darting back to the buyer, her voice trembling. "I know about the development plan he's hiding. It's not just a community center, it's a full-scale redevelopment. They want to demolish parts of our neighborhood to make room for new businesses that'll drive out local ones." Gasps filled the room, shock rippling through the crowd. Jake felt his heart sink. The glimmer of hope they had just built now felt like shattered glass beneath their feet. The urgency was palpable as the community began to murmur amongst themselves, feelings of betrayal and anger igniting like gasoline on a fire. The buyer stepped forward, his expression transforming from confident to defensive. "That's not true. I can assure you, any developments will be beneficial." "Beneficial for who?" Jake cut in, voice rising. "We don't need big corporations coming in to tear apart what we've built. This community is about people, not profits." The tension crackled, and Jake could see faces around him shift from skepticism to solidarity. Sarah stood immovable at his side, her presence a powerful rush of familiarity and support. "We need to listen to each other. We need to understand what we want together, not what some outside planner thinks is best." One neighbor, Mr. Johnson, shared his voice with courage. "We've worked hard for our homes, for our families. We won't let anyone take that away. If you're in this for the community, then you should be ready to work with us, not dictate to us." The buyer stood silent, his face shifting awkwardly between disdain and struggling recognition. The crowd began to rally, voices overlapping in a beautiful cacophony of fears, hopes, and shared dreams. Seeing the emotions magnifying, Jake felt a surge of pride. They were standing together, not as individuals who feared change but as a community ready for it. He turned to his father, who stood with a proud smile, and the bond between them strengthened, igniting their shared resolve. Then Mrs. Duffy nodded to Sarah, encouraging her to speak again. "We've got to put together our vision, the one we all see. Let us brainstorm on what the community center could bring without compromising any of us. We can work on this and show that we are united." With renewed purpose, ideas flew around the room. A community garden flourishing with local produce, workshops for all ages, spaces for families to gather, celebrating art, culture, and the heart of their shared history. The buyer shifted uncomfortably, realizing he was losing ground. "But all these ideas, who will fund them?" Jake stepped forward one last time. "We're going to get the community involved. We'll seek grants, support local fundraisers, and above all, rely on each other. This is about us, not just revenue. It's about collaboration." Just as his words settled, the warmth of determination filled the room. The community churned with life and energy, revitalized by the idea that they held the power to define their own future. Together, they were crafting a vision anchored in love, trust, and connection, a story that was theirs to tell. Mr. Thompson chimed in, voice steady and reassuring. "I believe we can work together with the buyer if he's willing. You family and friends have shown this is about more than just business. Let us foster this energy, not suppress it." The buyer's expression began to soften, the cascading waves of camaraderie in the room compelling him to reconsider. "Perhaps we can seek a common ground, a vision that blends community and growth," he said, his tone shifting from hostile to contemplative. With excitement thrumming through the air, Jake felt relief wash over him. As the buyer and the community leader began to negotiate, a sense of empathy started to bridge the division that had threatened them all. This wasn't just about a community center or money. It was about weaving together the fabric of their neighborhood anew. As the discussions continued, Jake looked at Sarah, who was now glowing with energy and determination. Their shared history solidified a deeper bond in that moment, one that embraced the paths they were choosing to walk together. Tom caught Jake's eye, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. They had faced the storm and emerged with their heads held high, redefining their legacy together as a family and a community. And at that moment, Jake knew they weren't just building a center, they were building a future. A tapestry stitched together with threads of resilience, trust, and love, creating a story for generations to come. They would keep moving forward. They would face each challenge with courage and connection, ready to show the world what it truly meant to be a community. As they turned the corner away from uncertainty into promise, Jake felt a swell of hope fill his heart. A new chapter awaited, one he was proud to embrace, ready for whatever came next. So in this very spirit of connection, share this story. Your support is essential. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and showcase our journey. Comment your reactions, your feelings about this transformation. We want to hear from you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this message with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Show them what it means to fight for what really matters.